Spider-Man Life Story is one of my favorite, I don't know, event stories, whatever, to come out of Spider-Man. It's a six-issue thing done by Chip Zdarsky in 2019, and I kind of launched this Swinging Through Comics channel by reviewing that. I was a little bit late to the party. It doesn't matter. Anyway, what I wanted to do today is talk about every spider suit in Spider-Man Life Story, and then I want to kind of rank them. I think I'm just going to do a top three of my favorites. So, anyway, I'm going to be talking over the images of all the suits in this issue, or in these six issues. So if you're checking out the audio only version, you should definitely go to the website where I have these linked. You can find all the images there that I'm going to, like the six or so main suits that I'll be talking about. I'll make sure to feature whatever I talk about. I'll definitely have the top three up there, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about those now. So, Spider-Man Life Story, each issue covers a decade in Peter Parker Spider-Man's life, and so it starts off in the 60s with the classic Steve Ditko design for Spider-Man's costume. It's simple, it's classic, it's all fabric. He has, in the shot that I'm showing, he's wearing a backpack along with him, to carry his stuff or whatever, and he's got a regular old mask with, cloth eyes in it. When we go to the 70s in the second issue, it looks like he has lenses in his eyes because his eyes have a reflection on them, and you can see he's wearing white armor pieces on his shoulders and on his shins to knees, and it looks like that might have been inspired, to me, looks like it may have been inspired by the Spider-Man PS4 game, and I think it's another great look. Mark Bagley's art is really good in this. I just kind of want to talk about the suits and not like the suits as necessarily a creation of a particular, artist. So we'll see what happens there. If you, I didn't notice this. If you zoom into his belt, he actually has kind of an externalized belt made of that same hard white plastic. I'm going to be extra geeky and talk about the fact that in the original version of it, in the 60s suit, or the original suit designed by Ditko, he didn't have a belt on or anything underneath. Except for his underwear, of course, but he was beaten by an enemy in one of his early issues, and he decided to come up with a belt to hold extra web cartridges, as well as to prepare for having his camera stored in his belt, and then, the flashlight or spider signal or whatever, different stuff like that he accessorized as he went on, and they cover, or you get to see, Peter Parker's ingenuity and how he uses that to adapt to Spider-Man throughout this issue, or throughout these six issues throughout Spider-Man Life Story, and that's pretty cool because that's one of my favorite things about Peter Parker and Spider-Man, is that sometimes, despite the fact that he's really strong, he has to come up with a solution to beat somebody with cleverness. So next, in the 80s, he is involved in the Secret Wars, and we see an evolution of his suit. His belt has been enhanced. It's red now. His suit's a lot more blue. The red has been decreased. He had arm gauntlets on before and shoulder pads, but in this version of his suit, a lot more of it is armored. He's putting armor on his chest and shoulders and things like that, which is smart, but he still has the cloth mask, and these mask guys don't appear to have lenses in them, even though, well, they don't appear to have lenses, but they're a little shiny, so maybe they do have lenses, but, in one scene we can see him actually, like, welding part of it, so this is definitely a techie suit. Then, he gets the symbiote, and, that's just a classic thing. Anyway, one of the things I most like about this costume, the black symbiote Spider-Man costume, is that you can see in the body language how different and how, much more aggressive he is, and, that makes sense with the, with what the symbiote is and what it becomes and things like that. I said every Spidey suit. Technically, Kraven is wearing a Spider-Man suit. He's wearing a copy of the black symbiote, suit. He's wearing a copy of the symbiote suit, duh. And by this time in the issue, Peter had changed into his classic costume. Again, this one does not look like it has anything special going on in the eyes other than cloth. Like no armor to speak of. And then we get to see Peter actually become Venom, and I thought that was a really cool twist on things. I like the Peter Venom look. It's kind of neat. Not something seen in many places that I can think of, although they did do it in Spider-Girl. Okay, so moving into the 90s, we have this, it looks like the classic Spider-Man suit, except there's a lot more black on it. there's this kind of interesting ribbing going on the outsides of his legs and the insides of his arms, and it looks like he has lenses again. And I don't have much to say about that one. It's kind of neat, but the ribbing kind of throws me off. It seems funky. Then in the, what was that, this is 90s, so this is the 2000s, we have a very Ben Reilly inspired suit. There's so much blue. He's got, internal web shooters instead of external, but the large spider is going over his shoulders and kind of dying into the blue. It is on his chest, and the deep view, the deep angle that was on the Ben Reilly suit going into like probably the midsection, mid belly, so to speak, has been raised up to like coming down under his chest. But then like he still has, it's not quite the half blue, half red like gloves and boots that he had, but it's something similar. And then we see in this one when he gets battle damage that he has lenses again, and they're cracking. And I kind of wonder if they just cracked or had him have lenses here so they could be cracked, because that looks so cool. I think the first place I saw that was in like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, but I remember there being a Spider-Man toy when I was a kid that was a battle damaged Spider-Man, and he had like hair poking out of his mask, and like the black was around his eye, but like all the white was torn out, like from getting punched in the face. So anyway, then this is still in the 90s. Peter ends up going into the spider cave to select a suit, and we get to see a bunch of these. I guess, did I not notice on the ribbed suit, it was obscured before, but in the spider cave scene you can see that he has a metal belt, kind of like the Scarlet Spider, with the the round tubes and the circular disc where the belt buckle goes, and that's kind of interesting. It seems to have kind of more armored feet and legs, like shin guards, knee guards, that kind of thing that I hadn't noticed before. And oops. So we have, it's a little bit hard to see. I mean, they made it as if you were entering a real room. You just get a glimpse of all these different suits, but there's one that is just past the ribbed suit that has exposed web shooters, and not much else. It looks like the legs are all black, and then behind that one there's one that seems to have a lot of metal on the belt, and it has a very swoopy, almost bird-like spider on the back. And then the one next to that has the red going real high up on the arms, and actually the legs too, so he's got a lot more red on that one, and there's a giant spider on his back. And then if we cross back over, just in front of Peter, there seems to be the classic Spider-Man suit, red webs and blue, as it's called. Then maybe it's a take on the Iron Spider. It definitely looks like that thing has lenses, and it's got like a diamond-shaped spider that's split apart and has the arms popping off of it. And there's big shoulder pads and giant, looks like forearm guards that are made out of metal or some sort of armor, and knee pads and stuff. And that one looks like it's more black with red on it, and even has a diamond on his forehead. I don't know what that's about. And then just after that one, there's another one with the exposed web shooters and a spider on the back of it instead coming, and that's on the red. So I don't know if that mirrors on the front or what that one looks like. And then beyond that, there's another one that looks similar to the classic Spidey suit, but we don't get enough detail on it because it's pretty far away. But I do like the idea too that as he got older and he was Spider-Man for 30 years at this point, 40 years, I don't know. This is in the 2000s, so yeah, he would have been Spider-Man for 40 years at this point, that he had a whole spider cave. And it makes sense with what he does, or what his career path is in these comics. And I guess this one wasn't seen in that room, but in that same issue, we get to see him in a black and red Spider-Man suit that feels very reminiscent of Scarlet Spider to me, with the shape of the spider on his chest and the belt that he has. It's a metal belt, and he's got the exposed web shooters that have the, I guess, like tubes they kind of look like. And he has very clear shin guards and knee guards. And a really interesting design feature is that his arms and gloves are black, like the back of his hands are black, but on the inside there's red with the black lines for like the webbing. And it's got a weird kind of popped collar. It almost feels like a leather jacket kind of look to this. It's I don't know, it's interesting. I like it all right. The final suit that we get to see him in, though, is when he's an old man. So this is in the 2000s, and so he would have been, it's the 6th issue, so he would have been Spider-Man for 60 years, so he's 75, 72, I don't know how old he is at this point. But It almost looks more like a NASCAR suit. It's funny, it's like one side of it has webbing on it, mostly the red and webs, and then the other side is mostly just the blue, and then there's a obvious seam going down the middle, so it's kind of like a jumpsuit, which is maybe why I said it looks like a NASCAR suit. And he has these really, really heavy armbands. I guess they're web shooters or things around his wrists. They have a lot of technology on them. They have a lot going on. This is, of course, in the Marvel, 2010s, so I guess technology would have been super, super advanced at that point. And he has a really, really chunky belt that has just a lot of equipment, and I really enjoy the look of this. He has, I don't know if it's just because he was going into space or not, but he's got like a metal helmet that has a glass faceplate, and on that I think it can show his face, just normal, his civilian face, and then it kind of projects the design for his Spider-Man mask, and I thought that was pretty darn cool. As a bonus, I'll let you see I have Miles Morales in his costume. He's with old Peter. And anyway, just you get to see his suit. Again, it's heavy on, well, I mean, like the actual Miles Morales costume, it's heavy on the black, and then there's a little bit of the red and webs, and they try to keep his chest emblem more true to, how it looks in the comics. So that's interesting. And then, let me see, what else? Is there many others to go over? There was one more that appears that's kind of a wobbler as to whether or not it actually counts, so I didn't show it here. But here you can see there's another spider suit clad person, and they have like the symbiote spider, the white one, on a very red costume with long white sleeves or white gloves, and then it looks like some sort of white belt. They're only shown in glimpses and from far away, so you don't get to see too much about them. Before I go, of course, I need to share with you my favorite 3 Spider-Man suits, and I'm going to have to say that they are probably this 80s one that we didn't really get to see much of, unfortunately. It's really cool. I like all the different stuff he has going on with it. It's part cloth, it's part armor. There seems to be a lot of technical aspects to it. I wonder what this thing did to this gauntlet. Was it like a supercharged web shooter? Holy smokes, that's a loud blue jay. Anyway, and I don't know, I just really like something about it. There's I don't know, it's really, really neat. There's a lot to appreciate about it. And I like the fact that he chose to stick with the cloth cowl for that one, at least. And continuing on, my next favorite would be, let me see, I really like the Ben Reilly suit, but in this case, my second favorite isn't the Ben Reilly suit. I'm going to say it's probably, I can't pick the classic because it's too much. I really like this one that he uses too. Some about all that black and red and how reminiscent it is of the, I guess the Ben Reilly Spider-Man suit, with the, huge external web shooters that look like these big tubes and the belt, and I like the spider thing, the Spider-Man face on it too. Anyway, to sum up on that one, probably just feels like the greatest balance between being techie and being like a natural normal suit. Like it's a slightly armored Spider-Man suit that seems to make sense for him, and it just looks cool. But definitely my favorite is going to be Old Man Spider-Man from the 2000s. I really love how, I don't know, it almost feels like, man, like just look at the gumption that this guy has to still be suiting up and going out there and fighting. And I kind of wanted to leave this spoiler-free while still showing off a lot of stuff, but he's able to do something really, really, really cool with his gauntlets, and gosh, it really made me happy that he had the ability to do that, and that he had built that into his suit. And just, I don't know, like just the belt, how complicated it is, and how many gizmos and gadgets are on there. It was really pleasing to me. And, I have no idea what any of them do. I don't even know if the artist has any idea. And that's, I don't know, it's fun to me. That's cool to me that just, Peter's ingenuity shines through, and he continues to engineer this thing and to make it work for himself, even in his old age. And I wanted to show, maybe it's clear or not, these boots he has are like ridiculous. The armor on them is just, it's so silly looking. It almost looks like he's worried about his legs getting hurt. Maybe he's got, fragile toes now after all these years, or maybe it amplifies his sticking ability somehow. who knows, maybe as he aged it was harder for him or there was more strain or something, but anyway, I just think it's neat. And yeah, I find it funny that this old man Spider-Man suit that looks kind of like a NASCAR thing is my favorite one, but maybe it has to do with, I really like Spider-Man, one of my foundational superhero things that I enjoyed, but I'm into some different things now, and I keep going back and reading the classic Spidey issues, and they're really pleasing to me, and I just love all the creativity and everything in them, but I've like navigated to different things, and I have slightly different tastes, and I had kind of had a love-hate relationship with superhero comics, but then there was, Japanese stuff that I really liked that this reminds me of, and maybe it reminds me of that stuff, and that's why I like it so much. But it still feels very true to who Peter is and who Spider-Man is, especially because we see him shooting webs and things like that. He doesn't have a chance to swing around in the space station or whatever, but he certainly uses his spider powers, and that's cool to see. Even, as an old man, he's still kicking and still doing what he's got to do. Thanks for sticking with me. Check out mjmunoz.com for more of my work. I'm an aspiring author who will gladly accept your financial support through coffee, or you can buy merch from my Redbubble store. More on that later. Swinging Through Comics can be found on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and mjmunoz.com/STC. Relevant links are in the show notes. If you had a good time, like and share this. Subscribe, ring that bell to catch me next time on Swing Through Comics. So, as I mentioned, I have different tastes, different things that I enjoy. I have a variety of merchandise. There's Star Wars-based stuff, there's tokusatsu, which is Japanese live-action stuff, and then there's like this web heart design that I made, inspired by Spider-Man and my love for it, and that's one item I have. I may make more Spider-Man stuff in the future. I made a design previously, and I pulled it down because I didn't like it. It was kind of cheesy and didn't look that good. The finish on it wasn't good enough, but I put a lot of work into this one, and it looks really cool on a white shirt, on a colored shirt. You can see here on the colored shirt, or sweater or whatever, it looks really good, pops out nicely. And then I have I even put it on a dress, leggings. I mean, there's lots of different options you have on Redbubble, so I explored all those. And then I have a cap inspired design too, which I'll show you right now. I like what it says. It's, cap shield basically, and it says on it, defend the weak from the strong, fight for freedom and equality, unite against tyranny. And then in the middle it says sacrifice, courage, honor, patriotism. I thought it looked cool, and I felt like all those things embody the ethics of Captain America, and I made it so you can get it on all sorts of stuff, and I just think it's pretty neat. So anyway, you can check that out if you like what I do and want to support me.